So let's dive straight in. It's wonderful to be with you again, my friend. We've been working together and collaborating for many years. I wanted to start with the basics, really. What does mindfulness mean to you, and why is it so relevant right now, do you think?
It's a great place to start, because this talk's called Mindfulness Made Easy, and before we think about how to make it easy, it's important to take a few moments to explore what is mindfulness. And I thought I knew what mindfulness was actually before I wrote my first book. I'd been studying it for ages, and I was writing this first book, and I thought, okay, first paragraph, I need to define what is mindfulness. Very easy. So I thought, let me just check what this book says. And it had one definition. Let me check another book. It had another definition. I did literally buy about 20 books on mindfulness at the time, and each of them had a slightly different definition of mindfulness. And I did eventually come to it for me. But having kind of been sharing mindfulness over the years, I think it's beautiful for each person to reflect what it means to them. What does it mean to you? Because each person can see it differently. Someone may be coming from a very spiritual or Buddhist context, and they would define it one way. A psychologist would define it another way. But I think each of us need to define it as to what it means for us. So that's the first kind of question I would love to ask in the chat with all these wonderful people that have joined us. What is mindfulness for you? What does it mean for you? How would you define it?
So I'm seeing lots of responses: paying attention, being present in the moment, awareness, peace of mind, being here and now, giving myself time, embracing the moment, focusing on the moment, being with my breath, sitting in the present, observing myself, paying attention, non-attachment, self-care, calmness, being truly present, grounded. Lovely. It's too many responses to read, but there's a really nice mix of different things there.
Yeah, exactly. There's a stream of answers. So it seems like one of the common factors there is being present. I could certainly see. And there's some people talked about kindness there, and compassion, and focusing. So this was some of the things that I found when I looked at the different definitions. So for me, first of all, it was about coming into the here and now, the present moment. Pretty much everyone agrees. It's about being here a bit more rather than being lost in the past and the future. And that's fine. But it's not just that. And it's many other things for people. And what I found is it's coming into the here and now, the present moment, but with certain values. And there's four really important ones that came up for me, and maybe for you too. The first one is about cultivating a sense of kindness. An example I give is like, imagine if someone's a sniper and they're trying to kind of hurt someone or kill someone, that you wouldn't think, oh, wow, that person's like so in the moment. They're so present. They're so mindful. We wouldn't associate the word mindful with something harmful. So it's certainly about cultivating kindness, and kindness to other people when we're being mindful, but also so important nowadays, finding the space to be kind to ourselves. And we'll talk about that. The second one is another beautiful one. I love talking about this one, which is about cultivating a sense of curiosity. So this is not something we need to train ourselves in. We're naturally curious. Look at a young child. You don't have to train them. So, just keep asking me why for the next few years, and you'll start learning and discovering new things. It just comes so naturally to them. Why? That sense of natural curiosity is within us. And when we're being mindful, when we feel an emotion or have a thought, or we're experiencing something in the present moment, rather than just judging it, if we start being curious, like, oh, I wonder why I'm feeling a little sad today, or why is there so much anxiety? I wonder, where do I feel it in my body? Rather than just seeing it as something negative that we want to get rid of, bringing curiosity. The third one is acceptance, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, allowing and accepting things to be as they are in this moment. Doesn't mean you have to accept everything in the world and forever, but just in this moment, with what we're feeling, with our bodily sensations, cultivating a sense of allowing, making space for things to be there. Such an important part of mindfulness. They call, with mindful therapies, they call them acceptance-based therapies, because the acceptance bit is so important. And the final one that I think often gets forgotten, Eckhart Tolle writes about this a lot in The Power of Now, the ability to step back, the sense of openness. So not just thinking I am depressed, or I am anxious, or I'm happy as well, but I'm noticing this feeling arising within me, and knowing that this feeling or sensation or thought will pass, like all experiences pass. So there's some kind of key elements to And that gets us started with what I want to share for what mindfulness means for me.
That's lovely. And it's really nice how it draws on everything they've shared there. So maybe we could, before diving into some things I'd love to ask you, maybe we could experience a bit of this mindfulness now. So perhaps you'd like to guide us through a little introductory moment of mindfulness.
Yeah, let's just take maybe 2 or 3 minutes, if that's okay. And I think it's a nice way for us to center and ground us in the moment, to experience it rather than just talk about it. So I'm going to share a senses exercise. This is one of the first mindful exercises I learned, which is about being mindful of our senses. So as you're sitting here, probably I'm guessing with your eyes open, just take a few moments to look around your surroundings. So there might be some sort of screen that you're looking at right now, and there's all the various colors there. And then looking around the rest of your room, noticing the various different objects and the different distance between the different objects. And just noticing 2 or 3 different colors. Maybe pick a certain color, such as green, and notice where you see that. Maybe pick another color like red or yellow. Just start to be a bit curious. And you might actually notice something new in your room that you haven't actually noticed before when you've been in that room for so long. So cultivate that curiosity. Good. And so we can do mindfulness with our eyes open in that way. And you can continue to have your eyes open, or you can just cast your eyes downwards. But let's go to the sense of touch. And just notice the weight of your body on the chair or the bed or the floor. Just notice the posture that you're sitting in. And if you want to adjust it and make yourself a little bit more comfortable, it's all about tiny steps today. So if you want to make yourself a bit more comfortable, go ahead and do so. Notice the taste in your mouth. I don't know if you've lucky enough to have had a meal recently. There may be a certain taste in your mouth that you can notice. See if you can sense that. There's usually a certain scent in the room. I'm hoping it's a pleasant scent for you, but just cultivating that sense of smell. What can you sense when you connect to your sense of smell right now, which brings you into the present moment? And then finally, sounds. There's obviously the sound of my voice, and then the sounds in your room and beyond outside. Just allowing all those sounds to be there, bringing that sense of acceptance and allowing that I talked about. And also that sense of silence, which is beyond or underneath the sounds. And as we finish this little exercise, just maybe finishing with a tiny smile on your face, having had the space and time to do this exercise, and gently opening your eyes if they've been closed. So that's a little senses exercise to get us started.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I think, folks, we turned the chat off during that just so we could all be present for that. But I think we'll be resuming hearing from you during the rest of the event. Shamash, I think one of the things that you and I both have an interest in is helping ourselves and helping other people to change their behavior. And one of the things I think that draws me to the title Mindfulness Made Easy is that people have quite a lot of, I think, barriers to wanting to engage with this. It might involve lots of time spent meditating. It might involve spending, carving out particular parts of the day in very special ways and learning new skills. And of course, all of that's true and very beneficial. But to change behavior, I think we've both found that small actions can make a bit of a difference. That's certainly one of the premises of Action for Happiness. And I know you've been looking into this as well. Do you want to share some of your thoughts on maybe how we can begin a journey towards this through small steps?
Yeah. Happy to. Thank you. Well, I just want to share my own personal experience of how small steps and starting a tiny habit really helped me. And I think back to the time a few years ago, it was winter, very dark and cold as usual here in England. And I kind of got myself into a bit of a rut. It was over a period of weeks. It may have been a month or two. But all the things that Action for Happiness, and I'm such a big fan of Action for Happiness model, things about socializing, giving, being kind, being mindful, all those things kind of dropped away one after the other. I wasn't feeling that energetic, so it was harder for me to get out of bed. One of the things that really helps me is to do meditation. I know it's not for everyone to do longer meditations, but I know that as I reduce the amount of time I meditate, I get more frustrated and irritable, and I have other challenges too. So I wasn't doing that. I couldn't get myself out of the house to exercise. And so, all these kind of negative things, one after the other, it became a bit of a negative spiral for me. So I was stuck in this rut. And, I'm sure there'll be some other people listening to this that could identify with those moments or those days, weeks, months, or even years when you feel like that. And so I'd got myself into that too. So as I said, meditation is something I learned when I was around 20, mindfulness and meditation, and I'd never managed to make it into a really solid habit. So it would carry on for a few months and I'd love it. I'd be feeling really great when I do my daily morning meditation. And then gradually, something would happen. Usually I get a headache or I don't feel good a certain day and I don't do the practice. And the next day I also don't feel good. And then I drop the habit. And I want to practice my 20 minutes or whatever every day, and I just can't get myself to do it. And even having written all these books and taught loads of people and shared the benefits of it, I felt quite embarrassed to say that even I was struggling with that. And it was a few years ago that I read a book called Tiny Habits. And it was written by a guy called BJ Fogg, and he's considered the #1 behavior change researcher. And he made a big breakthrough in discovering specifically how tiny actions make a difference. His example was very small, and it seems like a silly one, which was flossing. He really wanted to floss his teeth because he knew he really needed to do it, but he could not get himself motivated just to do that simple action of flossing his teeth. And because he's this behavior expert, he knew he needed to make it easier. And if he made it easier, then he would be able to do that action, and then he would be able to praise himself. So he did that. He just flossed one tooth, and just flossing that one tooth gradually grew into a habit. And then he talked about the power of these tiny habits. So I had the idea, what about if my commitment isn't to do this long meditation, it's just to do one mindful breath? For me, when I really don't feel like meditating, even to do 1 minute of meditation, I don't feel like doing it for some reason, even though I know it feels good when I do it. So for me, it reduced to just one mindful breath. And as soon as I just thought of that idea, it got me excited because I knew that no matter how sick I felt or unwell I felt or how low my mood was or how tired I felt, I knew I could do one breath. And so I started that every day. Every morning I woke up, I took one deep mindful breath, and then maybe had a little smile. And almost always I wanted to do more. So I did. But if I didn't want to, I didn't have to. And it felt like a little win. So this was when I discovered the power of these tiny habits. And now we discussed this a bit yesterday, myself with Mark, and we talked about how sometimes, especially in these times at the moment, talking about small habits, doing these small things like just taking one deep breath seems like such an insignificant thing. And it might seem like, that's not going to really change the world or make a difference. But actually, why was I doing that? That breath led to more meditation. That led me to my next habit, which was every day, I just need to put on my walking shoes. And then if I want to go for a walk, I can. And if I don't want to, I don't. And that works so beautifully too. So these tiny things, although they seem tiny and insignificant, this is one of the things I want to emphasize. When we take these tiny actions, if we think about the meaning behind it, mindfulness has so much depth of meaning behind it. When you become more mindful, you become more kind to yourself, you can be kinder to others, you can reduce your stress, you can listen to others more effectively. It leads to greater well-being for you and your family, but it has to start somewhere small. And the smallest thing I can think of as an analogy for this is a seed. Now, I was talking to one of my friend's sons a few months ago about seeds, and he's a really young boy. And I was telling him, it's amazing how all these trees come from just a tiny seed, isn't it? And he went, no, they don't. I'm like, yes, they do. Like, see that oak tree? It just comes from an acorn. He's like, nah, you're lying to me. And I spent about 5 minutes trying to persuade him, but obviously he doesn't believe me. He didn't trust me too much. He's like, nah, I don't believe it. You can't have a whole tree that comes from a seed. But the seed is so tiny, but it's so meaningful. And it's the same with a breath. Like this moment is so tiny, a breath, but it has the potential for growth, and it could grow into something incredible, but you can never know until you try it. So, an acorn is tiny, and many of them won't grow into a beautiful tree, but one of them will. And it's only when they're scattered that there's a chance for that to happen. So this is what I want to invite, this kind of attitude that we're going to be planting seeds today. I'm going to invite you to think of 2 or 3 mindful seeds to plant, or whatever seed you want to plant into your life. And maybe one of them will germinate. But if they do or don't, doesn't matter. The fact that you have a go, you plant them in a playful way, and we water them with attention and with kindness. That's really what makes a difference.
It sounds great.
So
It
yeah,
sounds
that's what I'm passionate
very
about sharing today.
practical for us all to use. So I'm going to take one mindful breath now and invite you to start brainstorming some extra tiny habits. So that's one of them. What else is on your mind? What else have you learned from these behavioral insights?
So the walking was one of them. The mindful breath was another one. Another one is gratitude. So I've read so much and I've heard from Action from Happiness and others that gratitude is so important. You should have a gratitude journal, write 3 things that you're grateful for. And I have managed that. And for some months, I've managed to stick to that. But sometimes it's really, really hard. And I think maybe I set myself up to be too much of a perfectionist. And one line that I've learned is progress over perfection. So this idea of like, just have a little go, just take that tiny step to something like gratitude and build it up from there. And so one powerful habit is, just as I go to bed and as my head hits the pillow, just thinking, okay, what's one thing that I'm grateful for today? And I can write it down if I feel like it, but if I don't feel motivated enough, I don't have the energy to do so, just thinking about it, just reflecting on it, just sharing it with another person is really, really powerful too. So there's another example. Another one, which is a bit of a funny one, is what we've developed in our mindfulness classes. And I've ended up calling it, it makes me laugh even to say it. It's the 1% smile. So what I found is that when I guide meditation classes, mindful classes, we can end up, I don't know if you've ever seen people doing a bit of meditation, but they can look pretty serious and grim while they're trying to do this meditation. And so, I saw research on how when we just do a tiny smile, it actually has a positive ripple effect. But how do you do a smile when, something really difficult or hard's happened, or you really don't feel good? So I thought, okay, what's the smallest version of a smile? And I came up with this idea of a 1% smile. So you can try this now as we're having this conversation. Just sit there, and it's very hard to do 1% smile, because when you think about it, it makes you smile much more than 1%. It is for me. But just try and sit there and just have a smile, which is 1%, just the tiniest of smiles. And someone may not even be able to see it on your face when they look at you, but on the inside that the smile muscles are just engaged in a tiny way. And if you do your deep mindful breath with this 1% smile, it really makes a difference. A lot of people in my classes, they say, yeah, I did the 1% smile. And sometimes they say, today I did the 100% smile, and I felt that I was smiling all over my body. And so this is another example, the seed of a smile. Some days it can feel really hard and really challenging, but I think we can all find the space for the 1% smile quite often. And when you can, that will create this ripple effect that I'm encouraging today.
There's a lot of love on the chat for the 1% smile idea. I found that very hard, because when you laugh, Shamash, you always make me laugh as well. So I was grinning my head off while you were doing that. But as you say, sometimes right now, wherever we are and whenever we are, it can be really hard to smile. Of course, in the current situation we're in, there are lots of people facing all kinds of really, really dark hardships and loss and worries and anxiety, uncertainty. And so what I like about that is it's not suggesting perfection or that this is easy. It's just suggesting that even a small movement towards something that gives you a boost in a moment of clarity or calm can be helpful in the midst of a storm. But I know you've also worked with some other practices which can be really helpful when you're dealing with quite difficult situations. Is there anything you'd like to share on that?
Yeah. So another one I'd like to share, which I discovered recently, is called the Pearl Habit, Pearl, a Pearl Habit. And I think it's a beautiful name. And it's when you're meeting a difficulty or a challenge. Now, whenever we do any behavior, it has to have 3 things. This is one of the amazing breakthroughs that BJ Fogg discovered. For some people considered it like the same equation, like E equals MC squared. It's a universal equation that I'm going to be sharing with you. And that is, our behavior is based on three things coming together. The first one is motivation. And our motivation fluctuates a lot. So, people type motivation online a lot and search for motivational speakers. But the problem is the motivation spikes, but then it goes down again. Just like I shared in my example, I wanted to do my meditation every day. And on the days that I had the energy, I could. But then on the days when I really, really didn't feel like it, I didn't have the motivation, then I felt like a failure because I wasn't doing the basic thing that I wanted other people to do as well. So motivation fluctuates. The second thing that we need with behavior, motivation, the second one is ability. Ability is how easy or hard something is. And that's why we've called the talk today, Mindfulness Made Easy. Because if the easier you make your habit of doing mindfulness, the more likely to do it. If you can make it extremely easy, like a 1% smile, one mindful breath, you don't need much motivation at all. It happens. But there's a third thing you need. You need motivation, you need ability, you need one more thing. Let's see if anyone can guess what it is. The third thing you need, oh, very good. Beth, I can see. Yeah, there's a few of you that know about this. Brilliant. Prompt. Motivation, ability, and prompt. Those three need to come together. So a prompt is a little reminder for you to do the action. We can have external prompts, or we can have an internal prompt, like a feeling. For example, social media companies use the prompt of us feeling a little bit bored to reach out to the app. So they're very cleverly using that feeling, curiosity, and you may go to a search engine. Okay, so these emotions are the prompts for us to go to a certain app. Looking for more hope or well-being or resilience, Action for Happiness app. There you go, Mark. So that can be a prompt when you feel a little bit frustrated to look for an app to help you to feel better. But a Pearl habit is really exciting because if you can use the prompt of a difficulty or a challenge to remind you to do this habit. Now, an example that I was reading about today is a lady called Amy. It's a real example. That's not her real name. And she'd gone through a really difficult divorce. And, it was difficult working out, who's going to be looking after the children. Her husband or ex-husband started to be really unkind to her and just using really harsh language with her. Every time she had to go over to his house to collect the children, there's always this really harsh, negative interchange, and their relationship, even as friendship, wasn't really possible. She couldn't even imagine being his friend. And it was creating this negative atmosphere for the family as a whole, for the children. And she heard about these Pearl habits, and she had an idea, brilliant idea, which was when her ex-husband says something that puts her down or frustrates her or makes her feel upset, she will use that as a prompt to do an act of self-kindness or to think of an act of self-care. And she used to love, a local coffee shop. So she'd know that as soon as, he says something like that, she says in her mind, okay, I'm going to treat myself to a nice coffee, or I'm going to stay in and watch another cool movie tonight, or I'm just going to say some really nice words of kindness to myself. So she was cultivating this Pearl habit. And what happened, and she wasn't expecting this, first of all, she started to feel better. She almost, not quite, but almost looked forward to hearing this slightly negative tone from her ex-husband, because she knew that would mean that she could treat herself and be extra kind to herself. But then what happened is that her ex-husband started to reduce this negativity. It became neutral. And she never imagined that he could actually end up being almost like a friend. But that's what started to happen. Somehow, because of the way she was meeting her and her more calm frame of mind, made him less reactive to her. And it really helped to make the relationship much more bearable and positive. So these Pearl habits can be so powerful. So I invite you to think about something that irritates you. You can start small. Like we've got a dog next door neighbor or the neighbor after, and every now and then it starts barking really loudly when I'm trying to teach a class. And so that can be a prompt for me now to take a mindful breath, to do a 2% smile if I'm, or to think about one thing I'm grateful for, or to send some kindness to the dog, or to remind me of the importance of nature. So you can use these irritants, these frustrations. You can start small and think about how that can prompt you to do positive behavior that you think would make you feel better.
It's reminded me that I have a couple of those that I found really helpful myself. One is, for many years ago, I turned all the notification pings off my phone because I realized they were not good for my well-being. But for a while, I was getting really annoyed when I'd be in an office, not that we're in offices anymore, but when we were more able to socially connect, you'd hear other people's phones pinging and it would be like, oh, that's a bit of a distraction. So I use it whenever I hear any kind of ding or ping on any device, mine or anyone else's. I use it as that's my trigger to take a breath, which I really like. It's just like, oh, that's a little mindful bell. Okay, great.
That's a really, really good one. I like
that one. But then one that's been really with me this month, I love this phrase and I've found it really challenging. It's choose being kind over being right. And I find there's lots of instances in my life, whether it's at home with loved ones or out and about in this kind of world where we all have so many opinions, that I feel kind of wronged in some way, or that I want to show that I'm right, or that, make a case for, being in the right. And I think whenever I get that feeling now, I'm like, oh, actually, no, that's my little trigger, the reminder, as you were just saying, to sort of say, oh, actually, no, I could just choose to be kind rather than right in this case. And so often that's just the better way forward. So thank you for helping me give a word for that. Is it worth maybe people thinking about sharing some triggers that can maybe help them, build habits around?
I think this is a great moment to do that. Yeah. So maybe people could reflect on what is it? What is that prompts them that is a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging, a little bit frustrating?
I need to do this every time the internet cuts out. I think we all know that feeling in lockdown life.
Yeah. Every time someone says, "Can you hear me?"
Laura says, hearing the word "mom" 7 million times a day. Yeah, that's a good one.
Lots of prompts. Yeah.
Red lights at the traffic lights, certain work colleagues, kids arguing, homeschooling. Yeah, I know how that feels at the moment. Bad driving. All kinds of.
What's for dinner, when children asking what's for dinner.
And some of these are really, really right. It's right to feel angry and frustrated by these, but actually we still have a choice about how we respond.
Yeah. But I loved the one that you shared there, like Mark. Maybe people could write that one down and maybe put as a note somewhere to remind them. How can I be? So whenever someone says something that's very frustrating to us, we could ask ourselves the question. That's the prompt, to ask ourselves the question. In this moment, how can I be kind rather than right? And that question, when questions, like small questions, are so powerful. So when we ask our mind a small question, it starts searching for solutions. So then it'll start thinking, okay, yeah, maybe I can send that positive text or that message, or maybe I can do a favor for someone else that would make them feel good.
And I found that since I've been practicing that and had a few occasions where I felt sort of frustrated, and then instead of saying, I think you'll find, and being all, righteous about whatever was going on, I just chose a kind response. And then I found in a couple of states, it's quite a sort of feeling of sort of calm, or even, what's the right word? It's just like a little positive emotional boost from like, oh, there's that thing I just did. And I just changed how I responded. And I think you've also found some interesting things about that sort of feeling you sometimes get when you follow through with one of these habits.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm really excited about sharing this. So I'm going to be sharing with you all a new emotion that many of you may not have heard of. And this is actually one of the most important discoveries that he has made in behavior change. So BJ Fogg. So what he found is that, we're going back to that example of the flossing one tooth. So there was one day he woke up and he was flossing one tooth like he normally does, and does more if he wants to. But it was going to be such a difficult day. It was going to be a really challenging day. He didn't know how he was going to face the day. It was going to be really tough. In fact, he thought it was all going to go completely wrong. And so he brushed his teeth, he'd flossed this one tooth, and then he thought in his head, hey, well, at least I managed to floss one tooth, go me. And when he celebrated that little moment, that little achievement of just flossing that one tooth, he felt this emotion in his chest. And he felt, I guess you can call it a 1% smile, but he just felt a little bit of warmth in his body. And so he knew no matter how bad the day could be as it unfolds over the day, at least he managed. My example, it was, taking that one mindful breath. To share this with thousands and thousands of people approaches. So he coached them in this approach, and he encouraged them. What he found is that when people celebrate whether or not the habit actually happened, a discovery that most people don't realize about habits. Many people think positive habits are cultivated by just repeating them. They do the habit, but he found no, it's not really what it is. Very smart group here. Emotions that create habit. It's emotions. If you do a certain action and then immediately with a little bit of positivity, and I'll share some ideas, what is called a celebration, then you cultivate this positive feeling of success. And that is what creates the habit. It's positive emotions that wire habits. What happens is it releases a neurochemical called dopamine in your brain. And when that's released, the habit sets in. Just to give you an example, because you know how people talk about 21 days or 66 days to cultivate a habit. Well, if you give it, I just thought just now, if you give a teenager a new phone and you say, here's TikTok or here's Instagram, they're not going to have to work hard for 21 days to try and get into the habit of using it every day. It will become a habit very easily, and not just for teenagers, for everyone, actually, for so many people. So it's the emotion that they get, what they feel when they're doing it. It's emotions that create habits. So what he did is that he started to research, what is this emotion called? When you feel good, when you feel successful, what's the name of this emotion? He researched it in all the books. He couldn't find it. He talked to 3 of the top world researchers on emotions, and he asked them, what is this emotion called when you feel successful and you get that feeling of joy within you? And they said, no one has actually named this emotion. You're absolutely right. This is a particular emotion. The emotion we feel when we feel successful, perhaps when you do something small. What you should name it. So he thought, wow, I can actually name an emotion. And he came up with a beautiful name for this emotion, and he called it shine. And this will gradually become more and more well known, but I think at the moment it's not so well known. But it's that feeling you get when you do something simple, like one mindful breath, or any small, or it could be a large success that you have. But whenever you have that feel of success, that wonderful feeling of warmth you get within you is called shine. And when you have that feeling, it's probably a good sign that dopamine's being released in your brain in that moment. And it's a good sign that the actual habit is getting wired. So you had this great idea. Why can't we it's almost like tricking your brain. It's not really tricking your brain. It's watering the seed. You remember I used this analogy of an acorn. We're watering the seeds. And when you water the seeds, they sprout more quickly and efficiently. So let's think about how we can celebrate, because celebration, he believes, is one of the key skills for happiness and well-being that more and more people are going to learn. One of the main ones, a lot of people have heard about mindfulness. A lot of people have heard about gratitude, but together with that, the skill of celebrating in the moment to create a new habit and to start cultivating this feeling of shine is going to be one of the key skills for us to learn and cultivate. Now, I love to ask this question in the chat. So how would you celebrate? Let's think about how we celebrate naturally. So imagine you had a piece of paper, you wanted to put it in the recycle bin, and it was on the other side of your room, and you threw that piece of paper and it went straight in, and you just got it in direct. How would you celebrate in that moment? Okay, I'm going to read these. Air punch, smile, fist bump, whoop, arms up, big cheer, smile, yes, do a happy dance. Yes, oh wow, they're fantastic. It makes you smile just to look. High five.
High five my cat, I've just seen there.
High five my.
Brilliant. Shamash,
Brilliant.
I think you're occasionally cutting out connection-wise, so apologies to anyone who found some of that hard to follow. But fantastic. I absolutely love the shine thing, and these examples: kiss the dog, whoop whoop, reward
Yeah,
myself with biscuits. Yeah, I mean, I found with that example I was giving you a moment ago about, when I was trying to choose being kind over being right, that when I had that moment of like, oh, I've just said something that was sort of disarming rather than inflaming this, I'm glad I did that. And it's not a big celebration. It's not a fist pump in my case. It's just like, oh, that felt good. I can do this again. And what it becomes, exactly what you said, it becomes reinforcing. It's like you've had the trigger that you've wired up. Like, when this situation, this feeling happens, I'm going to try to do this. And then when I remember to do it, great.
yeah,
I feel, it's a moment, but it's actually quite a
yeah.
powerful moment. I really like that.
I mean, you shared this with me. We had a chat yesterday and you shared this with me because you were excited about it. And if you didn't feel something about it, you would not have shared it. So that's a sign. It's the emotion behind it that you were excited about sharing. And that's why it's happening more often too. And
I really
it's a
want.
really great point. Like, for some people, the celebration is, high-fiving the cat or dancing, but it can be a very subtle one. It could be like, well done, Shamash, or well done, me, or just gently smiling, or even visualizing hugging someone that you really care about. It could be very subtle in soft ones. It could be more crazy ones, whatever it is for you.
It's really nice, and I'd love to, in the interest of time, I want to come to questions. There've been lots of great questions posted, and I'd also like to invite you to do another little meditation for us before we move to Q&A. But just before we do that, I think it's been really helpful this session looking at little ways we can be more mindful. And I feel that there are lots of other examples that you're probably aware of, maybe we've both come across, that are little ways that we can just bring a bit more mindful habit into our day. And I think you were talking about something like you call them golden practices, things like remembering to leave your phone outside of your bedroom. And what are some of your top tips for more mindful, conscious living?
Yes. So I'm going to invite anyone who wants to try and think of. I might have cut off slightly there. I'll say that again. I'm going to I'm going to invite you all to think of 3 small mindful behaviors that you could do. And I'm going to try and help you to cultivate these golden behaviors. So what is meant by golden behavior is first a behavior that you think could actually make a really big difference, would have a big impact in your life. Something that may help to improve your sleep, which may help you to get you started in exercise, which may get you started in eating a little bit more healthily, get you started in being a bit more mindful in your everyday activities, get you to practice gratitude, or one of the elements of great dream that are so powerful. So have a little think about the small actions that you could do that could make a big difference. For some, it could be the one that I explained, which was when you wake up in the morning, at least you're going to take one deep mindful breath. If that feels good for you, if you think that could actually be quite impactful, and I also feel it's something that I can do. These are the 2 questions you need to ask yourself. Do I feel that this could make an impact in my life to help me go where I want to go? Do I feel this is something I can make myself do? If you feel you can make yourself do it and you feel you can make an impact, so that could be the deep breath. It could be when I sit down with my cup of tea, I'll enjoy it really mindfully. It could be when you go for your walk every day, you make it a mindful one by thinking about spotting 3 different things in nature. Now, one I'm going to share with you, which has been the most successful of all the habits. Imagine hundreds of thousands of people trying out loads and loads of different habits. And I'm going to share one which seems a little bit cliche, a little bit positive, as if it's positive thinking, but it's not really. It's setting an intention for the day. It's called the Maui Habit, and there's a whole TED talk just on this habit. And it's simply when you get up in the morning, when your feet touch the floor, you just say to yourself, today is going to be a good day. Now, I was talking to a lady yesterday who was faced with having to actually deal with the funeral of her husband, and she'd been doing this habit for years, and she didn't want to stop the habit, but she knew that felt fake to say today's going to be a good day when she was faced with something so hard and so dark. And so she thought about it and she changed it. And she said, today I'm going to make it a good day for the people that attend this funeral. And that felt so meaningful for her. I actually asked her yesterday if I could share this example today. She said yes. And she said that felt so meaningful for her. The people that came or connected, whether it was online or in person, they were so touched by the ceremony and what happened. And she felt that was really, really meaningful for her. So you could actually consider that one. That's helped thousands of people, which is setting the intention, just your feet touching your floor. Today's going to be a good day. Another nice, simple one. After I go upstairs, I will roll out my yoga mat. You don't have to do any yoga. If you're into yoga, but you find it hard to get into it, you just roll out the yoga mat. So there's a few examples I've shared there.
Those are brilliant, really practical. Thank you so much, and lots of great responses in the chat too. This has been such a helpful, practical session. I think actually, Shamash, I might dive straight to some of the questions now, and then maybe we'll leave time to do a sort of final mindful exercise before we wrap up, because I think it might be a really nice way to close if that works for you. A few people have talked about children and mindfulness. There's a question here from Magic for Children. What would be a good prompt or trigger to help children practice mindfulness?
Well, I think it would be quite similar as when it would be for you. I mean, it'd be beautiful if you practice a little bit of mindfulness together. So, for example, a prompt could be when you're having breakfast with your child, like as you sit down, before you start the meal, you could think about or share one thing or three things that you're grateful for, or you could take one or two or three mindful breaths together. So meals are quite good because if there are certain points in the day, they're specific that happen. It could be any specific moment in the day, and everyone's different. That's the thing. The thing about this is being playful and seeing which moments in the day work for you. So it could be breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I think before meals is a good one. It could be maybe before you give them their phone or something to play with. There might be a certain moment between them doing their schoolwork and starting having fun time, and you might say, okay, let's just take a moment of mindfulness as we add one thing and start the other. Let's share what we're grateful for today, or share one win that you had today. So there's some that come to mind.
Really
But
nice.
trying to keep it light and simple and playful with children is really, really important, I think.
And a few people have really come back to that idea, the very first thing you shared, of the mindful breath. And it's interesting, if both of us, Gina here has said, can you do a mindful breath for a novice, please? And someone else said, can you just say a bit more about the mindful breath? And I guess we may take for granted what that means. Perhaps you could talk us through how the best way to do that is, and why it's important.
Yeah. So you can call it a mindful breath, or maybe a mindful deep breath. So what happens is that, I just noticed the things stopped a bit. So when we breathe in, actually our stress response is triggered, and every time we breathe out, our relaxation response is triggered. So a mindful breath, I would recommend you take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, you breathe a little bit slower than you breathe in, and you'll find that your relaxation response is triggered. And all it simply means is that you stop, you draw a deep breath in, if you can, down into your belly. So when you breathe deeply, it goes right down into the base of your lungs and your belly expands a little bit. But don't worry about that too much if that doesn't work for you. But if you can, inviting your belly to kind of expand, so you're breathing in deeply into your lungs. And then as you breathe out slowly and smoothly, you can combine it with the 1% smile, because I think some of you have enjoyed that. And just simple as that. And then just notice how your body feels as you do that. So normally we're doing and thinking and doing all sorts of stuff. So shall we do a little one mindful breath together to start with, just to experience it? So I'll just guide you through it. So just simply sit or lie down comfortably, close your eyes if that feels good for you, and just take a deep breath in right into the base of your lungs. And try it now. It's so easy to do. So let's all do it together. Deep breath in. And then gently smiling as you slowly breathe out. Feel that out breath as you breathe out. And it's as simple as that. And then if that feels good and you want to do more, then you can, because we're planting the seed, we're watering it. And if you smile or you do something to make you feel good as you do that breath, you're going to enjoy it so much. You're going to be wanting to do it again. And then you're going to start telling your friends and family about it. So you just build on from one to the next, and let it grow naturally, like a seed grows naturally. If it wants, it will grow to the size that is right for you, and everyone's different.
Lovely. That's a really nice practical example of just the simplicity of one breath. Coming back to something a bit more challenging, I guess, because many people are dealing with really difficult situations at the moment. Lucy's asked a great question. I'm suffering with anxiety at the moment. What can I do to cope with these horrible panic sensations?
Mm. One exercise I wanted to share is the RAIN exercise for that. Is that okay if I share that?
Please do, yeah.
Okay. So if you remember the acronym RAIN, RAIN, and this is quite a popular one for mindfulness, especially dealing with difficulties. So, we all experience anxiety as human beings, and sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And for some of us, because we're going through such challenging times, we experience it so much. So the first step in RAIN, R, is to recognize. So you recognize this is a moment of difficulty for me. Let me be honest with myself. I'm not going to pretend that this is feeling great. Like if you feel anxious, it feels uncomfortable. This is hard for me. So you recognize that this is a tough time for you right now. And that's a moment of mindfulness right there. You're recognizing. Next step, A, I'm now calling that to allow yourself some space to cultivate self-compassion. Allow yourself to be self-compassionate. So you say words of kindness to yourself. So imagine if your friend was going through some anxiety right now because of what they're going through. What would you say to them? You would maybe hug them, you'd listen to them. You may say things like, don't worry, this will pass with time, or you will feel better with time. And so say those words to yourself as if you are your own best friend. I mean, that's such a wonderful thing to try and cultivate, trying to be your own best friend and using a bit of that language, just a sentence or two. The I in RAIN is to investigate. Remember what I shared about being curious. The thing about anxiety is that the more we try and run away from it, the more it kind of chases us. It's a little bit like a shadow. And when we start to shine our light towards it, light and warmth, awareness and kindness, it starts to soften a little. So I is to investigate, start becoming curious. Where do I feel this in my body? Oh, it feels uncomfortable in my stomach and I can feel this tingling. Let me place my hand there. What happens if I deeply breathe and do the 1% smile when I'm feeling this anxiety? What happens? So you're starting to investigate, you're starting to get curious, which is wonderful. And the final letter, N in RAIN, stands for non-identify. So rather than saying to yourself, I am anxious, say to yourself, I notice there's the feeling of anxiety right now. I notice that there's the feeling of anxiety right now. So there's a space between you and the anxiety. You are not anxiety because if you're not anxious 24/7, there's moments in the day when it's less. There's moments when you fall asleep, it's not there at all. And so it's coming and going like a wave in the ocean. And so you're stepping back, you're the observer of the feeling. And that little bit of space can feel so wonderful. And that can help you to accept how you're feeling. So it's not easy, but it's possible to work with it in that way. So RAIN exercise.
It's really powerful. And there are some other questions about dealing with loss and other difficult situations. And I think the RAIN practice is really helpful for that. Folks, we'll try and share more about some of these things that Shamash has mentioned in our follow-up email tomorrow, as well as a video from this event. I know lots of people have been asking if they can watch the video again because of all these great tips. One final question, then I'll come to invite you to do maybe lead us with another mindful exercise. But Jose has asked, I think, a really interesting follow-on question to the great stuff you were sharing about shine and positive triggers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So you can cultivate a habit easier when there's a strong or positive emotion attached to it. But what are your tips when you're trying to build a habit that gives you no joy, but you know it's beneficial for you? So I guess that might be somebody trying to build a habit of exercise or different eating approach or something that doesn't actually fill them with much positivity. Is there still a way we can create that shine moment?
Great question. So one of the key maxims of BJ Fogg is help people to do what they already want to do. So you can convert that to yourself. You can help yourself do what you already want to do. So start with actions or activities that you want to do. So let's say if it's exercise and the type of exercise you're trying to make yourself do, you really don't want to do it, then see if you can explore and try things that you do want to do. Maybe it's a more gentle form of exercise. Like for me, it's walking, mindful walking, or listening to a really favorite audiobook as I'm going for my walk. So I would really invite you to explore, see what elements of the activity that you want to do, that you actually want to do. And I think this is the mistake that I've made in the past and others do, in that we're trying to force ourselves to do something we don't really want to do. But there's many of these golden behaviors that are good for us that we do want to do. I wanted to do the meditation, but I wasn't willing to do that long section of practice. So I could start with one mindful breath. So think about the starter moment of the, let's say if you want to eat lots of healthy fruit and vegetable every day, but vegetables, maybe you've got one favorite fruit and you can just have one. I think I got cut off. Maybe you could just have one bite of a banana or of an apple, for example. We're just taking us into that and smiling, celebrating, which you should by definition enjoy, and you need to keep exploring to find the celebration that works for you.
Lovely, that's really helpful. Okay, Shamash, I'd like to suggest we do one final mindfulness exercise because we have you with us. You have all these great skills and practices. I know we talked about one that you had in mind. Hoping your internet connection stays with us. But if it doesn't, folks, just remember to use that pausing time to take a mindful breath and just give yourself a 1% smile.
Good one, good one. I'm turning my internet on and off just to give you little pearl habit opportunities today. I think it's every time I laugh too much, I shake my internet cable. So don't make me laugh too much. Okay, so this last meditation takes a few minutes, and it's a nice one, and people seem to like it. So let's try it. So begin by sitting in a posture or lying down in a posture that feels good for you. Doing this practice in a way that feels wonderful. So you don't have to force yourself to sit in a certain way. Be nice and comfortable. I like to practice this with my eyes closed. It's up to you how you want to practice it. Let's begin with a 1 deep breath in and out and a 1% smile as we do so. Slow breath in and a nice, slow, smooth breath out. Wonderful. I'd like you to do a little visualization. I want you to heavy bags. You've probably had this fixed hand, another one in your right hand, and they're really pulling on your arms and shoulders. It feels really uncomfortable holding this heavy weight. So see if you can visualize it as best you can. I know it's easier for some people than others, but it's good practice. So try and visualize you're carrying these 2 heavy bags. The bag in your left hand represents your past. So imagine the word past is written on it, and it's got all your experiences in the last few weeks, months, years. All your past is in that heavy bag in your left hand. And in your right hand is the bag of the future. All your hopes and dreams and wishes, but also all your worries and anxieties about the future. And so you're carrying these 2 bags with you all the time. You've been carrying it from quite a young age, and it's been weighing you down for quite some time, I'm guessing. And the invitation just for the next minute or so is to gently put these bags down just to see what it feels like. So you can begin with the bag of the past, and the more you can imagine lowering your left hand down and putting that bag of the past down, all of your past, all the challenges you've had, all the difficulties you've had, imagine just putting them all down just for now. What would it feel like for that bag to touch the ground, and you just got that sense of relief when you open your left hand and the bag of the past is down there. So just feel what it feels like in your arm and shoulder. And then the same with the bag of the future, your worries, as well as your hopes and dreams. You can just put them down just for now. You can pick them up later on. So lowering that bag down, the bag of the future, and you can put it on the ground, let the ground support it. You don't need to worry about the weight of that bag anymore. And you find yourself imagining standing or sitting between the past and the future, which, as you know, is called the present moment. And so give yourself the space this evening, or wherever you are, whether you're watching this live or recorded, to just feel your bodily sensations. Maybe taking another deep breath or two. And if you enjoy this idea of a tiny smile, then doing that. Feeling the sensations in your body, listening to the sound of my voice. These are the simple experiences of the present moment, which naturally arise when we let go of the past and the future, and we find ourselves in the here and now. And as we become conscious of our body and our breathing, we can be grateful that we are here, that we have the time to practice, or the simple and powerful insight that we're fortunate enough to be alive right now and conscious and breathing. So being grateful for that. And when you're done with that, you can gently open your eyes and just reflect for a few moments about how that experience was for you. And if you enjoyed it, then you can celebrate it in a gentle way, however feels good for you. Maybe putting your hand on your heart, maybe smiling. And maybe you'll do that little habit again in the future.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely exercise. It feels very good to put down the heavy bags of the past and the future. I will definitely be trying that again in my future. Shamash, so grateful for your time. You've been wise and entertaining, but also really, really practical. And that's really what Action for Happiness is all about. And so, folks, whether we're going to be taking that one mindful breath, practicing our 1% smile, we might be jumping out of our bed saying today's going to be a good day, even if things are tough. We might be celebrating the gratitude at the end of the day. We might be, taking that moment to not only set a little trigger habit that we'll remember, but have that shine moment. These are all so practical. The rain practice when we're facing difficult times. So you've given us a whole toolkit of little ways we can do this. We're at our end time now, Shamash. Is there any final thought you'd like to leave us with this evening?
I just first of all want to express my gratitude to you, Mark, and the Action for Happiness team, and beyond that, all the volunteers. I remember a year or two ago, I went to one of the Action for Happiness courses, and I got so much from it, and so wonderful to be part of that community and continue to be connected with them. So thank you so much to you and the whole team, and also a big thank you to you all for turning up today. Thank you so much, and I hope you can celebrate the fact that you made the effort and the time, because it's difficult for a lot of people to turn up to this. So celebrate that moment. Thank you so much. And I'm excited about you scattering your seeds of mindfulness and beyond, and playfully sharing them. And let me know how it goes with that. I'd be so happy to hear from anyone if it works for you.